Hello and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, my next guest is a best-selling author, Forbes contributor, speaker, advisor, aspirin, customer experience punk. And we're going to find out about that, CX punk. But his driving passion is helping to create and develop and grow businesses that take care of their customers in the best way possible, and creating great teams that's required to do this. So it's really a focus on great customer service and experience. So please welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Adrian Swinscoe. Well, first, we are in really challenging times at the moment. So, let's talk about how customer experience has had to adapt, if at all, in light of COVID-19 and the challenges that we're having at the moment.
So I think there's, I actually think there's a bunch of things kind of going on that we have to bear in mind. I think that there are many businesses that are struggling, and there are many people that are struggling. There are many businesses that have had to transition to remote working to keep their businesses going, and also kind of their service and support teams have to been able to transition as well. And so while some businesses have not experienced a huge uptick in demand, they're able just to kind of keep going. Other ones are experiencing elevated levels of demand. So when you combine that elevated levels of demand with a transition to remote working, there's all sorts of pressures that get put on there. Now, I think that the things that we've got to do, the key to understanding and dealing with all this is being mindful of, one, what our people are going through trying to do this as they've done that transition to remote working, and how we can help them do the best job that they can. But also how can we kind of communicate with our customers to help manage and set expectations at this kind of very, very unusual time. I actually call it, I started referring to this as, we talk about business as usual and maybe service as usual. And the idea that you could take service as usual and turn up the volume, as it were, is just not going to cut it right now. So we have to actually start thinking about it as service as unusual, because it's a completely different context. And that's going to require the participation of both our people and our leadership and the management and our systems that we use to help our teams to do good things and the right things for customers. But we also have to ask our customers to step up and help us too. So it becomes a two-sided thing. And that's why I call it service as unusual, because we can't succeed if we don't ask for our customers' help in this.
What do you mean asking for customers to step up and asking for their help?
So what I'm saying is, when I talk about that communication, I talk about the idea that there are many companies, heard of many examples where people are just turning off their service and support lines and stuff, even though businesses might be open for business. Let me give you an example. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they talked about they're still working, but working remotely through the week. But they wanted to try and call their bank to do a bit of banking sort of thing. They had a thing that they needed to address. So they thought, actually, I don't have time during the week. I'm going to call them at the weekend. They called them at the weekend to get a message that said, "We're closed. We're not taking any calls." And I was like, "Well, how did that make you feel?" And she said, "Well, it was just a bit it was just rubbish." I was a bit like, "How am I supposed to kind of no?" I said, "Okay, fine. Let me kind of let me suggest something else. How would it work if they had turned around and said, put a message on their phone lines which said, you know what? We are working towards a system where we can operate in a remote way. So we're transitioning to that. We are working really, really hard to do that. But the thing is, we need to look after our people and you in that process. Now, bear with us. We are working very hard to get us back up to that 24/7 kind of level of service. But right now we're only at 5 days and limited hours. So if you bear with us, we thank you for your kind of patience. Can you try and call us back during the kind of week when we will be ready and able to help you? But we hope to be able to resume weekend service in the next kind of few weeks. And I said to her, if you'd heard a message like that, how would you have felt? She would be like going, she said, well, that would be wonderful, because I know that they're looking after their people. I know that they're telling me that they're working hard to get back to this. I'm going to be okay. I'm fine with that. Now I understand, rather than going, I've just hit a wall and now I feel frustrated, sort of thing. So it's almost like helping people understand what you're trying to do in order to help them doesn't make them feel helpless and frustrated. And that's what I mean. If you get the communication right, then customers will understand.
Mm.
We're not, we're all customers. We're not idiots. We see what's going on. And you don't necessarily have to specifically ask for their help. You just have to tell them what's going on and that you're working hard to kind of to resume service as usual. But right now, this is service as unusual.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that reminds me of an example that I've got. I've, like everyone, has ordered plants, and I literally did it just on the lockdown, and
Yeah.
it's the company that services online anyway, so my expectation is that I would have got it on time. So when I ordered, it was 7 to 10 days, fine. 2 weeks went by, no information, so I emailed them. They promise it should be with me in the next couple of days. 3 weeks went by, no information. And then what came out is their standard information is they're closing their customer service because of unprecedented demand. And it's like, you need to put more people onto your customer service, and you need to send out information to manage my expectations. So I was getting even more frustrated. Now I've got nowhere to go. I have no idea when this is being delivered. And yeah, it's just about managing people's expectations and putting your resources where it counts, I think, isn't it?
I think you're absolutely right. But I think what it requires to do is, we're all trying to react or not react in this current environment. But actually, we have to actually start being mindful about our reactions. We actually have to almost, like, in the midst of the melee, in many ways, we almost have to take a step back and start to try and think about what's going on for the people that are in our system, as it were, whether they're in our organization and all the people that we serve. And we have to become, we have to really build up our empathetic kind of musculature in many ways, because, and I've seen countless examples of firms that are just getting it right because they have that sort of culture, right? They just get it. They're like going, I am here to help, right? So what is helpful? What does helpful look like from a customer's perspective? And no answer in no pub quiz anywhere in the world is going, what are the things that what is helpful for a customer? No information. That is not the right answer.
Yeah.
Right? The answer has got to be, actually, if I can provide something which is of value, which is timely, which is of value, which is kind of informational, that helps my kind of customer understand kind of where they're at, where we're at. They might not like the answer, but they will appreciate the information if it's delivered in the right sort of way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it seems to me this is actually what we should be doing anyway. This actually helps us to get into the mindset of the customer. I don't mind waiting 8 weeks. Just tell me, because I understand the situation really. And it's just understanding what I'm going through, because I need to plan when I get my plants what I'm going to do, really.
Yeah, completely.
But it's what we should be doing anyway.
Oh, completely. I think the thing this has done is that it has shined a light on what good can look like, and therefore what it should look like all of the time. And what we're seeing is the best kind of just know this and get this, but everybody else is kind of way far behind. Yeah. And they're just struggling. But it's like the reason why, the interesting thing about it is empathy doesn't exist at an organizational level. Empathy is a human sort of thing, an individual sort of thing. And as individuals, unless you're predisposed towards it or you've had an experience of developing it, empathy is a habit and a behavior that we can learn. But it takes effort. and it takes time and it takes discipline and commitment. But if we all try and do it, we will all get better at it. Challenge is, neurologically and, psychologically, it's not the thing that we will choose to do, because when we feel under threat and uncertain, we default to looking after ourselves and looking inwards. And therefore, even though our instincts tells us that to look after ourselves, if we want to deliver better things, we have to force ourselves to think and look outwards.
Yeah.
So it is a skill that can be learned, but it can be hard work.
And I think also shared as well. Have you seen that advert from EE talking about, all the nurses, NHS, they're now going to get free data, just sign up, all of that stuff. I love EE for that. I used to be an EE customer for about 20 odd years now on Vodafone, but actually that would attract me back to EE.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the absolute thing. I mean, I just wrote a piece, published it yesterday, about something that I heard about from Zappos across in the US, and what they've done. And I know a few people over there, and I got hooked up with one of the guys over there to talk about it. And they've set up this thing called Customer Service for Anything hotline, and it pretty much means you can call them for anything, and you could ask them for recommendations on Netflix, or you can ask them for kind of like to help you check out kind of whether or not your local grocery store has got certain items in stock or whatever. It is they are basically saying, whatever you need, we can help. Now, the brilliant thing that I find out about that is that they've been able to surface this idea, and it sort of leverages their culture and their talent to be able to help in any way that they can. But here's the interesting thing. There was a story that just kind of blew this out of the water for me. There's a guy called Dr. Petrino who runs a lab as part of the Mount Sinai hospital system in the States. And they realized that they were running out of these pulse oximeter things, which are the little clips that go on your finger to measure amount of oxygen that you've got in your blood. And they scoured the supplier network to try and get kind of like more of these things, but they couldn't find any anyway. And when this guy, Dr. Petrino, had actually who runs this lab, had actually heard about this randomly, this customer service for anything line, and he was like going, this is a total moonshot, but I'm going to give them a call just to see what happens. So he calls them, and they said, we need these things. Can you help? And so they got to work. And they kind of got to work with their network and kind of scouring the suppliers and things, and they were able to locate 300 of them and then procure them and ship them to the hospital. That allowed them to discharge and remotely kind of monitor patients that had suspected COVID-19, and so they can get them out of beds and then and recovery from home. Now they needed about 1,000 of them, but they got 300. And for me, I just thought, that sets the bar, right? Yeah. And they were just a bit like, because we can, then we're going to.
Yeah. Amazing. Maybe we ought to get the government to ring them, for this PPE.
Yeah, I think so.
Able to sort that one out.
I think there might be Sheila going, dear Zappos, kind of like, we need some PPE equipment and a bunch of tests. Can you help us out?
Yeah, exactly. But it's an incredible opportunity for brand advocacy that will just roll on and on and on for years and years. I mean, Richard Branson has completely destroyed his brand credibility, with all the stuff that's going on. But there's others that are completely changed the way that they're perceived by customers.
I think you're absolutely right. There's a new piece of research that came out a little while ago from Edelman, and they showed that, and it's a global piece of research, and they said that over 90% of customers are reporting that they are paying very close attention to how brands are looking after both their employees and their suppliers in this kind of time. They want them to do the right thing by these kind of groups, even if that costs them in the short run. They want them to look after your people and the people that supply you. And then the follow-on piece of from and follow-on headline from that piece of research was that over 70% of those customers reported that if they saw those brands not looking after their people and their suppliers, they believed that they would lose that brand's that brand would lose their trust forever, and they would never do business with them ever again. And so whether that's true or not, you know, we will find out over time. But what it does show, what it does, you know, and provides evidence for, is this idea that what you do right now matters, and it will have a lasting consequence. So pay attention.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pay attention. Now, I'm particularly interested in the relationship between customer experience and sales. What's your view on this?
I think it's, I mean, it's a great question. A lot of the time people think these, you know, sales and customer experience are separate, but they're not. They are completely and directly linked, in my view, because I think there's a difference between, so I kind of characterize it in a question when I say, what's the difference between customer experience and the customer's experience? Now, technically, the difference is only 4 letters and an apostrophe, you know, but the actual difference in reality can be a country mile, you know, because customer experience almost can be a thing that gets done in organizations, whether it's a service department or marketing or kind of whatever, and then sales is separate from that. But if you think about the, in inverted commas, the customer's experience, which has got nothing to do with the organization, it's about what the customer, me and you, experience when we deal with it, with a brand, then sales is an intrinsic and an important part of our whole kind of journey with that particular brand. And therefore it is a huge part of kind of what happens, what makes our customer experience. There's another bit of research that says that 90% of all loyalty is driven by 2 points on a around about 2 points on a customer's journey with a brand. The first point, which is about 45% of all of the explains about 45% of all loyalty, if not a little bit more, between 45 and 50, I think, is that what happens around the customer's buying experience, that buying point. So actually that includes sales and everything else, and that their experience and their memories and their kind of like how that, you know, how it helped them is a huge driver of loyalty. Then the second part, which explains that the other sort of 40 to 45% is what happens when something goes wrong. You know, and I think sales plays a part in both of those things, both from a direct sales and also an account management, managing the relationship type of thing. And so to say that sales and customer experience are separate is, that's looking at it from a traditional organizational perspective, but actually in the mind of your customer, they're just one and the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's what they experience regardless, isn't it? Yeah, which is really important. Yeah,
ultimately it's a bit, you know, the truth of the matter is it's not about you, it's about them.
And I think that's one of the hardest things for companies to grasp, really hard to think, you know, get in their customers' shoes. So from your point of view, in customer experience, what's working and what isn't working?
So I think what's fascinating is that I think there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of investment in, you know, everything from the software side to doing all these programs. There's a lot of kind of like stuff going on. It's all very busy. The problem is, I think there's a lot of the stuff is very formulaic, because people aren't really thinking about what the outcomes are that they want to generate. There's a lot of people that are talking about, want to lead their market, but they're not doing anything different. So it feels a bit like, you know, everybody's like painting by numbers, trying to create art, right? But actually, you don't create a masterpiece when you paint by numbers. You might create a pretty picture, but it's not art, and it doesn't stand out, and it has no value really of anything. And I think that's the challenge, is that people need to stop and step back and actually go, what is it that we want to kind of we want to create and why, and how does that make sense for our customers, and how does that benefit our business? Because if we don't do that, it'll just be more painting by numbers, and you'll get disappointing results, and your customers won't be pleased, and then somebody else will show up and do something which is slightly better, slightly different, and then they'll leave in droves. And for me, that's it. So there's a lot of noise, a lot of activity, a lot of busyness, but not a lot of cut through when you think about kind of people doing kind of like doing stuff that's making a real difference.
I wonder if the stuff that's making a real difference is about the purpose. I mean, it's maybe a step further back, like, who are we? You know, what is our legacy? You know, what's what's the point of what, you know, the greater mission that we have, and then, you know, for who we have it, and then kind of going into what do we want to achieve here.
I think that's absolutely right. So I think the whole idea of experience is evolving, and it's something I've been thinking about for a long time. It's about, we have to think more holistically about this. Like, as I describe myself, is that I'm a fan of organizations that produce great outcomes for both their customers and their people. I think those two things are intrinsically linked. And then I would take the kind of people and I would make it a capital P, and it's almost like to describe kind of the broader society and kind of, you know, the world that we live in. So it's not just about the people that work for us, but it's about the kind of the system, the ecosystem, the kind of world that we live in, whether that's kind of local or global or whatever. Because interestingly enough, I think that what we've seen is that many people around the world are seeing many of these organizations. We're seeing government trying to respond to certain things, but not necessarily being able to do as much as they would like. And people are going, as an individual, my agency is quite small, but I can spend money with something and then and hopefully help use that larger organization to act as an agent on my part. To look after these people, to look after the environment, to look after these local suppliers, to et cetera, et cetera. And so we want organizations to do that. It's not always possible, you know, for many organizations to do that, but it will force them to think about, how can I, what do I need to think about in terms of managing my footprint on this planet? Yeah.
And, you know, Zappo is always used as a great example of that. I need to ask you about CX Punk, because that's quite an unusual name. Yeah, there we go. And, you know, your first book as well. Wow. Yeah. So tell me more.
So so that one is I call it, it's called 68 Effortless Ways to Make Every Customer Experience Amazing. Now, there's 68 of them. I really wanted there to be 69, just to see if I could get the publisher to agree to publish it. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to 69, so that's just one of those things. But then effortless, they're not really effortless, to take effort. Yeah. But what it is a set of ideas that span a whole customer journey, both in, you know, what a customer goes through and what we can do to help them, and also some of the dynamics internally. And the way I describe it is, it's not the answer. There is no model, there is no map, there isn't anything else. It's basically a series of almost tools. It's like a toolbox. Or if you imagine going back to the cinema back in the day, where you can still find these things, where you get the pick and mix bar. This is a pick and mix bar for better service and better experience. It might, so you'll be able to dip in and dip out, and hopefully going to get a whole bunch of stuff out of this. So this was published back in 2016, and it still goes well, and I'm so proud of it. This one, however, was born out the back of like frustration that too many people are taking too much of a formulaic approach to experience. And as is my wont, I was in the pub one day with a friend of mine having a pint of Guinness, a guy called O'Sheen, and I was saying to them, I was kind of getting frustrated, having a bit of a rant. And I said, I wish somebody would do something a bit more punk, because we're not seeing the results that we had. And that idea sat with me for a little while. And then 6 months later, I started thinking about it a bit more, and it made me think about punk music and where it came from. Now I'm a bit of a fan of punk music. And punk exploded out the back of prog rock in the 1970s. Now, prog rock, whilst it was kind of popular, it also got accused of being overly complicated, elaborate, self-indulgent, in danger of disappearing up its own arse, etc. Not interested in its audience. And in some cases needed a PhD in music to kind of be able to kind of participate. And the punk movement turned around and went, well, that's rubbish, and went off and did their own thing. Like, anybody can play, let's just kind of figure out what we can do. Made a whole bunch of, dared to be different, you know, DIY, democratic, all that sort of stuff. And I thought about that, and I thought, wow, don't you think the customer experience space looks a lot like prog rock did in the 1970s? Like, overly complicated, overly, you know, measured and certified and codified and benchmarked and frameworked and all that sort of stuff, and more interested in itself than actually the customers. And that's kind of played out in a lot of the research. And then I thought to myself, so I wonder what a punk version would look like. I wonder what a punk version would look like, because it's all about trying to dare to be different, to do that stuff, like I was saying, that matters, to stand out. And so this is what this is. And, you know, the yellow and the pink is you know, doffing my cap to, you know, Sex Pistols, Never Mind the Bollocks album cover. Yeah. And I designed like an album. So it looks like a fanzine like this. So it's all different colors. And the idea is that we, rather than having chapters, we have tracks with headlines, and then we have like a short number of kind of like words to explain what it is. It's done in quite a punchy kind of way. And, you know, it's up to you whether you like it or not. You might not like the whole album, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
You know, and it's an art project. For me, personally, it's an art project. I don't care if people don't like it, because it's not meant to please everybody. It's sort of like me making kind of music, right? And I'm like going, I'm going to make this. I hope you like it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, yeah, that's fine. And the cool thing about it is that it's landed really, really, really well. People kind of really get it. Not everybody, and that's kind of fine. But I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Well, no one can describe you as painting by numbers by any means. Adrian, how can listeners get hold of you?
So I am, the best way to find me is look up Adrian Swinscoe. So that's Adrian Swinscoe, all one word, .com. You'll find everything you need there, whether it's my blog, my podcast, details about my books, kind of the work that I do, how I help, and everything else.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we're going to have to do it again, because there's so many things we can talk about. And yeah, it's lovely seeing you again, even virtually.
Janice, it's absolutely my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, let's do it again. And this time, you know, we'll just keep turning up the volume.
Yeah, I love it.
Shaking things up.
Love it. All right, then you take care. Thank you very much, Adrian.
All the best. Thank you so much.